like I'm a doctor.
Ma'am, I don't care what you are. This is a crime scene. Please back off.
EMS hasn't arrived. You are required to allow emergency
Last
care.
warning, step back now or you'll be detained.
Then call your supervisor, because if he dies, that's on you.
The body cameras were recording. Bystanders had their phones raised, and within exactly 8 minutes, Officer Cole Turner would make a choice that would destroy his career, cost the city hundreds of thousands of dollars, and uncover a disturbing reality. He didn't understand his own department's rules. At 7:03 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon in April, a man was dying on a city roadway. A doctor stood just 10 feet away with the ability to save him. And a police officer wearing a badge stood between them, refusing to allow her to help. What unfolded over the next 8 minutes would end a career, reveal a department unaware of its own policies, and prove that the most dangerous thing about power isn't how it's used. It's when the person holding it doesn't know what they're actually permitted to do. Before we move on, can I ask you a quick favor? Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And if you haven't already, please tap that subscribe button. What this doctor did next, and what investigators discovered when they reviewed the department's own policies, will genuinely shock you. Dr. Nia Brooks was not an ordinary 34-year-old. While many people her age were still building their careers, Nia was already one of the most respected emergency doctors in the city. But here's the part that stands out: she wasn't just practicing emergency medicine. She was saving lives other doctors had already written off. Nia earned her medical degree from Johns Hopkins. She completed her emergency medicine residency at Massachusetts General Hospital, one of the nation's top 3 programs. She worked in some of the busiest trauma centers in Baltimore and Boston before accepting a role at County General Hospital. In 9 years of practice, she treated more than 10,000 emergency patients. Her coworkers called her the miracle worker because she had a rare ability to keep people alive when the odds said they wouldn't survive. Nia specialized in emergency trauma medicine. If that sounds complicated, let me explain it simply. When someone arrives at the ER dying from violence, accidents, or sudden disasters, Nia was the doctor fighting to keep them breathing. She could read vital signs instantly. She could identify life-threatening problems in seconds. She knew exactly what needed to be done and how quickly it had to happen. On that Saturday in April, Nia was driving home after a 12-hour shift at County General. The ER had been non-stop chaos all day. 2 shootings, a car crash, a cardiac arrest, and more than a dozen other emergencies. She was drained, running on caffeine and adrenaline. She wore navy blue scrubs with a dark jacket over them. Her hospital ID badge was clipped to her scrub top, showing her photo, credentials, and County General Hospital emergency medicine printed clearly. A stethoscope rested around her neck. She wasn't carrying anything else. No medical kit, no purse, only her phone in her coat pocket and her car keys in her hand. The afternoon was cool and cloudy. April weather in the city meant sudden changes. The sun was still out but hidden behind thick gray clouds. That in-between time of evening when daylight starts to fade but night hasn't arrived yet. The streets were busy with weekend movement. People heading home, going out, walking their dogs. Nia lived in a residential area about 15 minutes from the hospital. Working-class row houses, corner shops, the type of neighborhood where people knew each other. She was 2 blocks from her apartment when she noticed the lights. Red and blue flashes reflecting off brick buildings. A police car stopped in the center of the road, yellow crime scene tape being pulled across the street. Nia slowed down, pure instinct. 9 years in emergency medicine meant you always looked, always evaluated, always wondered if someone needed help. Then she saw him, a man lying on his side in the street, completely still, dark blood spreading across the pavement beneath his head. Nia's training activated instantly. Male, early 30s, unconscious, head injury, heavy bleeding, no visible movement. She pulled over, parked, stepped out, and walked toward the scene. The officer near the tape saw her approaching and raised his hand. This was Officer Cole Turner. White male, late 20s, 4 years on the force. Average height, solid build, the type of officer who followed procedures as he believed they existed without ever reading the actual policy book. Cole had handled many scenes like this. He thought he knew the process. Secure the area, protect the evidence, wait for detectives and paramedics. Don't allow civilians to interfere with the scene. What Cole didn't realize was that his understanding was completely wrong. The department's real written policy, sitting inside a binder he hadn't opened since graduating the academy, clearly stated that medical emergencies take priority over preserving evidence, that licensed medical professionals must be allowed to give emergency care when EMS is delayed, and that saving lives comes before locking down crime scenes. But Cole had never read that policy. His training officer never stressed it. His sergeant never brought it up. He relied on what he absorbed from other officers, and much of that was incorrect. "Ma'am, you need to stay back," Cole said. Nia stopped at the tape. "I'm a doctor, County General ER. How long has he been down?" Cole looked at her, then at the victim, then back again. "About 10 minutes, EMS is on the way." Nia looked past him at the man on the pavement. She could see his chest rising. Shallow breathing, rapid, too rapid. "What happened?" she asked. "Assault, that's all I can tell you." "Please step back from the tape." Nia studied the man, his position, the blood, the breathing pattern. Something was wrong, very wrong. "Has anyone checked his airway?" "Ma'am, I need you to move back." "Officer, I'm asking if anyone has done a medical assessment." EMS will handle it when they arrive. When were they dispatched? Cole checked his watch. 9 minutes ago. Nia calculated quickly. Average EMS response time was 12 to 15 minutes for non-critical calls. This likely went out as an assault, not a medical emergency. They might not even be sending a trauma unit. She looked again at the victim. His breathing had changed, now even shallower, faster, uneven. Dangerous signs, extremely dangerous. I need to assess him, Nia said calmly but firmly. No ma'am, this is a crime scene. That man could be dying. EMS will be here shortly. Shortly may not be fast enough. Cole's jaw tight. Ma'am, I won't ask again. Step away from the tape. Nia pointed at the badge clipped to her scrubs, her credentials clearly visible. Dr. Nia Brooks, Emergency Medicine, County General Hospital. I'm standing here in hospital scrubs. I'm qualified to provide emergency care. He needs help now. Cole glanced at the badge without really seeing it. Ma'am, I don't care if you're the Surgeon General. This is a secured scene and you need to leave. Quick question for you watching. Have you ever seen someone in authority who didn't actually know the rules they were supposed to follow? Type yes or no in the comments. Nia felt the frustration rise but kept her voice steady. Officer, I understand you're trying to preserve evidence, but if he has a serious head injury, every minute without care matters. I can do a basic assessment without disturbing anything. Cole shook his head. No civilians cross this line, department policy. I'm not a civilian, I'm a licensed physician. You're not EMS, you're not fire, that makes you a civilian. Nia gestured to her scrubs, the badge clearly displayed on her chest. I'm literally in my work uniform, my credentials are right here, County General Emergency Medicine. Cole barely looked. Doesn't matter, you're not authorized for this scene. Nia looked back at the man, his breathing was worsening, she could tell even from here, the chest rising and falling too fast, too shallow, the pattern of a body shutting down. For God's sake, I'm a doctor, let me help him. Cole's voice hardened. Ma'am, I don't care what you are, this is a crime scene, step back. Nia tried another angle. When was EMS dispatched? I told you 9 minutes ago. And when are they arriving? Any minute may be too late. Look at his breathing, it's failing, I can see it from here. The ambulance is coming, you are required to allow emergency care, Nia said, her voice sharp now. Cole pulled out his handcuffs and raised them. Last warning, step back now or you'll be detained. Nia stared at him, she looked at the cuffs, she looked at the man on the ground, she looked back at Cole. He was serious, he would actually arrest her for trying to save a life. Then call your supervisor, Nia said quietly, because if he dies, that's on you. Cole pointed toward the sidewalk behind her. Ma'am, step behind the tape now. Nia didn't move right away, she was thinking fast. The man needed help. EMS wasn't there. This officer was blocking access. She could push harder, get arrested, and the victim would still be lying there. Or she could comply, step back, and hope paramedics arrived in time. Neither choice felt right. She stepped behind the tape, but she didn't leave. She pulled out her phone and dialed 911. Cole watched her. What are you doing? Calling to confirm EMS status, Nia said. This is a medical emergency and they need to rush it. The 911 operator answered. Nia identified herself as a physician on scene and requested an immediate upgrade to a trauma response for a head injury patient showing respiratory distress. The operator confirmed an ambulance was en route with an ETA of 3 to 4 minutes. Nia ended the call and stayed where she was, watching the victim from behind the tape. Neighbors from nearby row houses began stepping outside. They heard the noise. They saw the flashing lights. The streets started filling with people. Small crowds, residents, passers-by, some held up their phones. A woman shouted from the growing group, let her help him, she's a doctor. Cole ignored her. Another voice yelled, what's wrong with you, she's trying to save his life. A man shouted, look at her badge, she works at County General. The crowd grew louder, more people gathered, more phones recording. Cole got on his radio and requested backup, saying a hostile crowd was forming and additional units were needed. The man on the ground made a wet, gurgling sound. Nia knew it instantly. That was aspiration, blood or fluid filling the airway, the sound of drowning. She started recording on her phone, aiming the camera at the victim, at Cole, at the entire scene. If this man died, there would be proof. Officer, Nia said loudly and clearly for the recording. That man is aspirating. He's choking on blood or fluid. He needs to be repositioned immediately or he will die. I'm a licensed emergency physician. I'm willing to provide care. Are you refusing me access? Cole turned toward her. Ma'am, for the last time, step away. I'm asking a direct question. Are you refusing emergency medical care for a man who is actively dying? I'm securing a crime scene. That's not what I asked. Yes or no? Are you preventing me from providing emergency medical intervention? Cole didn't respond. The gurgling grew worse. The man's body began to jerk. He's seizing, Nia shouted. He's going to die, let me help him. Cole looked at the victim, panic creeping onto his face. Nia stepped toward the tape. Cole grabbed her arm. Stop, Nia pulled free. Don't touch me, a man is dying. Cole pulled out his cuffs. Turn around, hands behind your back. The crowd exploded. People were yelling, phones filming from every direction. You're arresting a doctor. Someone shouted, let her save him, what's wrong with you? Cole hesitated. He looked at Nia. He looked at the victim, now clearly in medical distress. He looked at the cameras surrounding him. In the distance, sirens grew louder. The ambulance was finally approaching. Cole made his choice. He grabbed Nia's wrist and pulled her away from the victim. You're under arrest for interference, he said. He put her in handcuffs. The crowd booed and shouted. Nia didn't fight it. She allowed him to cuff her. She stood there, hands behind her back, watching the man on the ground struggle to breathe. 30 seconds later, the ambulance arrived. The paramedics rushed out. They saw the victim and immediately began treatment. One checked vital signs while another set up oxygen. Within moments, they stabilized him and prepared him for transport. The lead paramedic, James Rodriguez, someone Nia had worked with at the hospital, looked up and saw her standing there in scrubs with her hands cuffed behind her. "Dr. Brooks, what the hell? The officer wouldn't let me provide care," Nia said calmly. "I tried to help, he arrested me instead." James looked at Cole with open disgust. He turned back to the patient and helped load him into the ambulance. Before leaving, James walked over to Cole. "You stopped a doctor from helping. Are you out of your mind?" Cole didn't respond. The ambulance pulled away, sirens screaming. "Do you think the officer realized how badly he messed up? Drop a comment below." Cole uncuffed Nia. "You're free to go," he said quietly. "I need your badge number, full name, and your supervisor's name," Nia said, rubbing her wrist. Cole gave her the information. "Badge 3742, Cole James Turner, Supervisor Lieutenant Patricia Reeves." "Thank you," Nia said. "You should understand that man could have died because you blocked emergency medical care. I'm a licensed physician. My badge was clipped to my chest, and you arrested me for trying to help. I'll be filing a formal complaint to make sure this never happens again." She returned to her car and drove home. The April evening had grown darker, gray clouds dimming the city earlier than usual. Most people who experience something like this might complain to friends. Some would post online. Others might think about filing a complaint, then decide it isn't worth the trouble. But Nia wasn't most people. She was a physician with institutional support, legal resources, and video evidence showing an officer violating both state law and department policy. The next morning, Nia went to the hospital and met with the legal department. She shared her statement, showed them the video she recorded, and explained the medical emergency she witnessed. The hospital's legal team immediately pulled the police department's policy manual. What they found was shocking. The department had a written policy, Policy 417, Medical Emergencies at Crime Scenes, clearly stating that medical care takes priority over preserving evidence. The policy specifically said licensed medical professionals must be allowed to provide emergency care when EMS is delayed. Cole had violated his own department's written rules. The legal team also discovered State Statute 23412, which made it a misdemeanor to intentionally obstruct emergency medical care. Cole hadn't just made a poor decision. He had broken the law, a law he should have known because it was listed in the department's policy manual. The hospital filed a formal complaint with the police department, the city attorney, and the state medical board. They included video evidence, medical records documenting the victim's condition, and copies of the department policies Cole violated. They also located the victim. His name was Terrell Jackson, 32 years old. He had been assaulted outside an apartment building and suffered a skull fracture and severe concussion. The paramedic report stated that when they arrived, Terrell was in respiratory distress and aspirating blood. Without immediate intervention, he likely would not have survived. Terrell spent 3 days in the ICU but lived. His family was informed about the doctor who tried to help and the officer who stopped her. The police department received the complaint on Monday. By Tuesday morning, Cole was placed on administrative leave. Internal Affairs assigned the investigation to Lieutenant Patricia Reeves, the same supervisor Nia had told Cole to contact. Patricia had been with the department for 16 years. She had investigated hundreds of cases, but when she reviewed the body camera footage, she knew this one was serious. She called Cole in for questioning on Wednesday. "Why did you refuse to allow Dr. Brooks to provide medical care?" Patricia asked. "I was following crime scene protocol," Cole said. "Secure the scene, wait for EMS." "What protocol?" Patricia pulled out a binder. "This is the department policy manual. Have you read it?" "I went over it in the academy," Cole replied. Recently, Cole stayed silent. Patricia opened to a marked page. Policy 417, Medical Emergencies at Crime Scenes. She read aloud the section allowing licensed medical professionals to provide emergency care. "When was the last time you reviewed this policy?" "I didn't remember that part," Cole admitted. "You didn't remember that saving lives comes before evidence, or you never knew it at all?" Cole didn't answer. Patricia continued. "Not only did you violate department policy, you also violated state law. Obstructing emergency medical care is a criminal offense. Were you aware of that?" "No, ma'am. You arrested a physician while a man was choking on his own blood. You did this while violating our written policies. Do you understand how serious this is?" Cole's face turned pale. "I thought I was doing the right thing." "You were wrong, and you never checked whether your assumptions match actual policy." The interview lasted 68 minutes. By the end, Patricia documented not only Cole's actions, but a pattern of officers relying on assumptions instead of policy knowledge. The investigation revealed something disturbing. When other officers were randomly tested, over 60% could not correctly identify the medical emergency protocol. Many didn't even know it existed. The department had the right policies. They were written years earlier with medical and legal experts, but they were never enforced. No one trained on them. Officers graduated the academy and never reviewed the manual again. Cole violated policy, but the department failed to ensure officers knew those policies existed. The investigation lasted 3 weeks. The final report was detailed and clear. Cole violated Policy 417. He violated State Statute 23412. He had shown a basic lack of understanding of the rules that governed his job. His ignorance of simple policy had put a citizen's life at risk. The department recommended termination, but the report went beyond one officer. It documented a wider failure to train officers on existing policies. It noted that Cole was not the only officer unaware of the medical emergency protocol. It recommended mandatory yearly training on all critical policies, with testing to confirm officers actually understood them. Cole was fired 3 weeks after the incident. He did not appeal. His union representative told him the case could not be won. The body camera footage showed everything clearly. The department's own policies worked against him, but that wasn't the end of it. The state attorney general's office reviewed the case and chose to prosecute Cole for obstructing emergency medical care. Cole pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor charge. He was sentenced to 100 hours of community service and a $1,500 fine. He also agreed to never work in law enforcement again. Terrell Jackson, the assault victim, survived. His family filed a civil lawsuit against the city over the delay in medical treatment. The city settled for $285,000 instead of going to trial. As part of the agreement, the city committed to implementing the internal affairs recommendations. Every officer would receive annual training on critical policies, including medical emergencies at crime scenes. New officers would be tested on these rules before being allowed to work on their own. Supervisors would conduct regular policy reviews during roll call. The policies themselves did not change. They didn't need to, they were already solid policies. The department simply needed to follow them. If you believe more departments need to enforce the rules they already have, type facts below. Nia continued working at County General. The incident became part of her story, but it did not define her. She kept saving lives, kept training residents, and kept being the ER's miracle worker. The video Nia recorded went viral 6 weeks later when the lawsuit was filed. It reached over 3 million views. Medical organizations shared it as an example of the duty to provide care. Legal experts studied it as a case in government liability. Some people praised Nia for standing her ground. Others criticized her for challenging the officer. Some said she should have stepped away once arrest was threatened. Others said she did exactly what her medical oath demanded. But one fact couldn't be argued: she was right, the officer was wrong. And if she hadn't pushed back, Terrell Jackson would likely be dead. Now let's look at the bigger picture. This story isn't just about one doctor and one officer. It reflects a systemic problem found in police departments across the country. Good policies sitting in binders that nobody reads. Officers operating on assumptions passed down by coworkers instead of written rules. Training that happens once at the academy and never again. Cole wasn't a rogue cop who wanted harm to come to anyone. He truly believed he was doing his job correctly. He thought preserving a crime scene meant keeping everyone out, no exceptions. He didn't know his department had a policy saying the opposite. That isn't just an individual failure. That's a failure of the system. Think about it. How many officers right now are operating on bad assumptions? How many policies exist that could save lives or protect rights, but officers don't even know they exist? How many people have suffered because departments write good rules but fail to enforce them? The body camera footage from this incident is now used in police academy training in 7 states. It's titled Medical Emergencies and Crime Scenes: Understanding Your Department's Policy. Civil rights groups use it to educate communities about their rights during medical emergencies. Medical schools use it to teach students about the legal protections for providing emergency care. One confrontation on an April afternoon became a national conversation about police training, policy enforcement, and the gap between what's written and what actually happens on the street. Here's a question for you. How many times have you seen someone in authority who clearly didn't know the rules they were supposed to follow? Comment below. There's one more critical lesson here: documentation. Nia recorded the encounter on her phone. The officer's body camera captured everything. Witnesses recorded the scene from multiple angles, all telling the same story. Without those videos, the outcome would have been very different. Cole could have claimed Nia was aggressive or uncooperative. He could have justified the arrest using his own version of events. It would have been his word against hers. But cameras don't lie. They showed Cole blocking medical care. They showed Nia calmly explaining the emergency. They showed the victim choking while Nia stood in handcuffs. They showed it all. This is why recording matters, why body cameras matter, and why civilian video matters. They create accountability that would not exist otherwise. After the lawsuit settled, other incidents began to surface. People who tried to help at emergency scenes and were turned away by officers. Nurses, paramedics, even off-duty firefighters told to back off from situations where they could have helped. None of those cases led to consequences because there was no video, no documentation, no proof. Complaints were made, but nothing changed. Nia's case was different because she had evidence. The hospital supported her. The media covered the story. The video went viral. That is what forced accountability. But it raises an uncomfortable question. How many people tried to help, were turned away, and had no way to prove it? How many lives were lost because officers didn't know their own policies and no one held them responsible? Let's address something that came up repeatedly as this story spread. Some people said Nia should have backed off once arrest was threatened. That arguing with police is dangerous and she was lucky it didn't escalate. Here's the truth. Nia did back off at first. She stepped behind the tape. She called 911 to upgrade the EMS response. She did everything she could within the limits the officer imposed. But when the victim began actively dying, when she heard him choking, when seconds truly meant the difference between life and death, she made a choice. She tried to help anyway. Was it dangerous? Yes. Could she have been harmed? Absolutely. But But she took that risk because her medical oath demanded it, because a man was dying and she had the skills to save him. Not everyone would make that choice. Not everyone could, and that's understandable. But blaming her for trying to save a life misses the point completely. The problem wasn't that Nia pushed back. The problem was that she had to. The real issue was an officer who didn't know his department's own policies. The real issue was a system that had good rules but failed to enforce them. So what's the takeaway from all of this? First, understand the policies that control the people who hold authority over you. Cole didn't know his department's rules, but Nia knew the law. She understood her rights. She knew what should have happened. That knowledge gave her the confidence to stand her ground. Second, document everything. Record when possible. Get names and badge numbers. Create proof. Nia's video was essential in holding Cole accountable. Third, follow through. Nia didn't just vent to friends. She filed formal complaints with multiple agencies. She used her institutional support. She stayed with it until the end. Fourth, realize that good policies are meaningless if no one enforces them. The police department had strong policies. They simply failed to train officers on them. Enforcement matters just as much as the rules themselves. Fifth, sometimes doing the right thing involves personal risk. Nia risked arrest to try to save a life. Not everyone can do that, but it's something worth recognizing when someone does. As of today, Cole Turner no longer works in law enforcement. He took a job in private security and later left that field as well. He has never spoken publicly about the incident. Terrell Jackson recovered from his injuries. He has lasting cognitive effects from the head trauma, but he survived. He credits Nia with saving his life by pushing for a faster EMS response. Nia remains at County General Hospital. She was promoted to Assistant Director of Emergency Medicine. She now trains residents not only in clinical skills, but in advocacy, how to stand up for patients, how to navigate systems, and how to do what's right even when someone in authority says no. The police department now requires yearly policy training for all officers. Every officer must pass a test on critical policies, including medical emergencies at crime scenes, before annual evaluations. Supervisors conduct monthly policy briefings. Complaints about officers interfering with medical care dropped by 73% in the 2 years after the new training began. The policies didn't change. The training changed. The enforcement changed. The accountability changed. One doctor, one officer, 8 minutes, and a department was finally forced to follow rules it had written years earlier but never enforced. That's what happens when someone knows the law and refuses to accept ignorance as an excuse. That's what happens when documentation creates accountability. That's what happens when systems are forced to close the gap between policy and practice. Final question for you. What's one thing you learned from this story that you didn't know before? Share your answer in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. This story matters because it's not only about Nia and Cole. It's about every moment when someone in authority acts on assumptions instead of actual rules. It's about every good policy sitting unread and unenforced. It's about every person harmed because someone didn't know the rules that could have saved them. Nia's story proves you can push back against ignorance disguised as authority. You can know the rules better than the people enforcing them. You can document violations and demand accountability. And sometimes you can force systems to finally follow the good policies they already have. Not every story ends with accountability. Not every violation leads to consequences. But this one did, and that matters. The footage from that April afternoon still exists. You can watch a doctor calmly explaining a medical emergency while an officer threatens her with arrest. You can see the exact moment the victim begins to choke. You can see what happens when policy ignorance collides with medical necessity. And maybe, just maybe, the next time an officer faces a similar situation, they'll remember this case. They'll remember that their department likely has a policy covering medical emergencies. They'll remember that saving lives comes first. They'll remember that good policies only work when people actually follow them. That is Nia's legacy. Not rewriting policies but forcing a department to enforce the ones it already had. Not inventing new rules but holding people accountable for ignoring existing ones. Not overhauling the system but making the system do what it was always meant to do. This is the story of how a doctor stood up to an officer who didn't know his own department's policies and won. But more than that, it's a story about the gap between what's written and what's practiced and what it takes to bring those two together. Thank you for watching this story all the way through. If you found it eye-opening, make sure you're subscribed because I share more stories like this that deserve to be told. Leave a comment and tell me what you think should happen when officers don't know their own policies. I'll see you in the next one.